Hello, everyone. Today I had the privilege of interviewing Adam Turley. He's a singer, artist, musician, producer, etc. When we recorded this, he had just returned home from a 3-month trip to Thailand where he was recording and working on his next album. This was a really cool opportunity for me because I'm genuinely a fan. I got his music on Discover Weekly and kind of just went down the rabbit hole. And when he started his online community, The Room, I joined it, messaged him on there, and asked him if I could do an interview because I had so many questions about how he does what he does and how he thinks about being an artist and being a creative. I really enjoyed the conversation and I hope you do too. So here's Adam Turley. All right, I'm here with Adam Turley. Adam, welcome.
What's up?
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Thanks for having me.
So I would love to just start with talking about Thailand and your recent trip overseas. I've been following you on social media. And I'm curious, like when you look at the whole trip, what were the best things about Thailand and what were the worst things?
Do you mean like, are you asking the question in the perspective of me, like as more of like a tourist, or like in terms of the experience, like making music out there?
Either one, whatever kind of comes to mind. Just like, what did you notice that you loved? Like that could be the music experience and having the time, or just like what was like not the vibe or what was hard, or, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm someone that loves like, okay, this is what I told my wife before we went out, like, cause she's been to other countries and she's been to like Africa, really like third world places. But I would say I've spent like a little bit more time in Thailand's like, I don't even know if I would consider it third world, but it's definitely less developed than like where we're from. So I told her going out, like there's probably going to be situations when we're like uncomfortable, or it's going to be really hot, or like we're not going to be in the most like comfy situation compared to like how our life is in the US. And I was just like, we just need to embrace that. Cause like, even in those hard moments, like that's like part of the experience that we're going for. So in terms of like the things that were hard, it was just like, Thailand's crazy hot, dude. Like, and there's probably some people that are listening to this that are either from a place like that. Like I know there's places in the US, like, I don't know, parts of Texas and Florida where it's just hot and it's like sticky and so humid. I don't know where you're from, but it's definitely like that. So that was a huge learning curve because we're both from like pretty dry places, even when it's hot. And other than that, like really the only hard things were like being far from our families for a few months, for 4 months, and like being in different time zones. Other than that, for me, at least, like I felt so blessed every single day to like, we would just look at each other and be like, we are in Thailand. Like I'm making music every day. We just get to go to like a beach restaurant for dinner after I make music and eat food. That's amazing and so cheap. Like it was so cool. I don't want to like talk it up too much because that was just my experience. And like, I don't know, it's just like my dream in life is just to, I'm honestly like not trying to be crazy famous or like have a crazy amount of things. I'm just like, I just want to make music every day. And that was a scenario where like I got to do so many things that just felt like so, it just made me feel so fortunate. You know what I mean? So, and then like, I'm a huge foodie, so the food game is crazy. And I was just having so much fun, like trying, obviously like pad thai everywhere, but there's like some more niche dishes that I never knew about before I went to Thailand that are super good. And so just enjoying those. The smoothie game is crazy. Dude, the smoothies like are so, cause the fruit is so good there, and smoothies are so good, so cheap. Kimmy, my wife, would like spam coconut smoothies. They say like coconut with milk smoothies, and I would too. But I would just be like getting mango smoothies all the time. That was so good, dude. It's obviously I'm like rambling, and it's because there was just so many awesome things. I just can't even choose any. I don't know.
I love it. That's great. No, that's great. Awesome. So when I was watching some of your vlogs and stuff on, your group, like The Room, and you had the vlogs on there, I noticed the first one, you said that like you weren't necessarily planning on going over there, and you kind of like just pulled the trigger almost last minute, or that you'd been thinking about going for a long time and ended up kind of just pulling the trigger last minute. And I'm wondering like what that deliberation was like, why, like what made it so you decided like, let's go just do this, at that time, like how did you arrive at the decision to just go do that? Cause it's a little crazy, not crazy, but it's not what you would expect,
Yeah, no, it is crazy. It's okay if you call it crazy. It's definitely like not the normal thing to do. So when you do something like that, everyone's like rolling their eyes, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, as with a lot of decisions in life, it was kind of a compounding of several things, but really the day we decided that we wanted to do that, we were living in LA, had been there for almost 2 years, and we lived in a city called Glendale, which I love Glendale. If you're listening to this and ever spend time in LA, like Glendale, Burbank is an awesome place. Definitely compared to like some of the other parts. And there's a lot of cool parts of LA, but I really like Glendale, Burbank. So we like loved our neighborhood. It was amazing. What we loved about it is it was super walkable. So like we could walk to Ralph's, which is like the Kroger grocery store there, in like 2 minutes. And it was a really beautiful neighborhood. We could walk to Trader Joe's. There's like lots of coffee shops, just a really fun place to live. And we loved everything about living there. Besides I had a really, really bad neighbor situation. And my neighbor was really difficult to live next to. And she would just complain about like sound a lot. And I would like, anytime I move into a new spot, when I have neighbors, I'm always like very cautious about sound at first. So I wear headphones a lot, and I try to like ease into, I don't want to like just move in and just like go crazy. So I was doing that. I feel like I was being very respectful. But she was just like a really grumpy, not great person to live next to. So I even like moved my studio outside of our home and started renting space outside, and we were still like running into a couple of issues, and it was just making it like really, honestly, I was kind of miserable. Like I was so anxious about all the time. Like no one wants to tiptoe around in their own home. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I felt like I couldn't like relax at home. I was always worried about it. So I was like, Kimmy, we need to like get out of here. And at the time, there was one particular night. And by the way, previously we had been talking about, it'd be so cool to live in another country and just like experience a new culture. My little brother and some other friends had been to Thailand before and had like told us some things about it. So we had heard of it. And then one particular night, I think we got a complaint from my neighbor or something stupid. And I was like so mad. And I said to Kimmy, I was like, I'm going to text our landlord. And if she lets us out of our lease early, I'm going to ask if she'll let us out of our lease like a few months early. If she says yes, then we should go move to Thailand and just go do it. And then it was one of those things where we were like, we recognized that we had been talking about it, but like we were just going to keep talking about it unless, like it was always just going to be this thing we talked about unless we did it. And the cards kind of, or I guess everything came together because we were able to move out of our house and like move all of our stuff to my in-laws and not pay rent and move to Thailand. And I had like some credit card points that I had built up. So like we were going to be able to get over there for free and then not pay rent. And we were used to paying LA rent, which is just like so expensive. So it was one of those things where it was like, it wasn't going to be more expensive necessarily for us to live there than it would be at home. So we're like, let's just do it. So
thank God for that neighbor, dude.
Dude, I know.
No, I'm just kidding, but yeah, that's sick. I love it. So where are you at now? Are you trying to end up back in LA, or what's the plan?
Yeah, we're still homeless, dude.
Nice.
Because we just got back like a week ago. After Thailand, we did Bali for 2 weeks and then hit Japan on the way home, which was amazing. Japan's so cool. I want to go back to Japan like already. But now we are back in Arizona. My wife is from Arizona, and we're with her parents. I'm in like the sewing room right now. As you can see, the sewing vibes. Got all the fabrics back here.
Nice.
And we are trying to figure out how we can like lock down a house or buy something. But obviously that's pretty hard right now with how everything is. But we're just through the rest of the year, we're going to be bouncing between Arizona, which is where Kimmy's from, and Utah, where I'm from. And kind of just like seeing a lot of our family that we haven't seen in a while, and hanging and saving some money and figuring out like where is that place that we start settling, I guess. Regardless, I'm going to be spending time in LA because I still rent studio space there. And like, that's where I am doing sessions when I'm writing and producing for and with other people. But I had a big shift. I wouldn't call it a big shift, but like, I'm focusing significantly more on my artist project this year than I did like last year. And when I'm doing my own stuff a lot, that doesn't require me as much to be in a specific place. Just because like I produce most of my stuff, or some of it I work on with friends, but I could be in Thailand just like working on my album. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm locked down to a specific place, which gives and honestly, like, I love LA. Like, LA has brought so much growth to my career, and I still plan to spend time in LA. But as an artist, there is something nice about being out of the LA like bubble, because it's so mentally, it's, at least for me, it's pretty easy to get caught in comparison there. Like, it's hard. It sometimes interferes with me in some way. Whereas if I feel like I'm living like a normal suburban life like that I'm used to, like I can just like create and like not care about what anyone else is doing and just like focus. In LA, it can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to do that. Not impossible. Like, obviously there's so many people doing it, but all I'm saying is that I think for me, I'm seeing some benefits in spending time outside of LA too, where I can work on my stuff. And then LA is more like a networking, working with other artists, building that side of my career place for me.
Nice. That's interesting you say that, because I'm in Orange County, but I find that I run into that comparison thing just from social media. And one of
Yeah,
the
true.
things I wanted to ask you about is like, what is your media diet like? Like, are you watching a lot of movies and podcasts and going on social media a lot and scrolling a lot, or you don't do it that much? Or like, how do you, like, what is that like for you? And do you run into that where you're on social media like, oh, that guy's cooler than me? Oh, you know?
Guilty. Yeah. Guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Same.
course. Yeah, of course I do. Like, as with you, probably, like, I definitely battle that. And I try, especially more recently, I think I've done a little bit better job of just like posting my thing and like responding to the comments, and like not, especially with, I honestly, unless I'm like watching people's content to like help me get ideas or inspire content ideas for me, I don't really watch a lot of music content, because, and like, yeah, just because I know that if I doom scroll like other artists promoting their music, I'm going to come across other people's content that's like cooler than mine, or like is doing better than mine. And it's like so discouraging. As you
I
know.
feel it. Oh yeah.
So
I totally feel it.
I definitely get caught in the doom scroll though. That really, really, really sucks. And that's one of the things that makes you wish as an artist, like you didn't have to do social media, but like you have to. And yeah, I mean, dude, I even created like a separate TikTok account from my music one, so that I could have some sort of like a normal feed to scroll that's just like funny things. Because
Mm,
like, since I make music, like my whole algorithm on my artist one is just like people promoting, and it's
yeah.
like, it's not taking a break to get on social media and scroll. It's like stressful. So
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, man, I feel your pain. Um, so I guess I want to ask you now about another clip I saw on one of your vlogs. And you were like walking on a road, coming back from filming some content, and you were saying that you were like kind of discouraged or like it wasn't the vibe or whatever. And I'm curious about your approach to content in general and just how much like, because my experience is a lot of artists and people like nail it. And it's like they just get it. I'm just like, man, these some people just know how to do it and they get it. And okay, so back to the social media thing. I find myself, sometimes I'll create some content that I'm like, oh, I like this, or like, this is cool, or like, it was kind of fun to make, or whatever. It's like, I have a good idea. But a lot of times, and especially in the past where I was way more consistent, like it was pulling teeth and I just bailed basically. Like I just do way less content now and try to do stuff that I like more and spend more time making it. But I'm just curious about your experience with content, how you think about it. If from my perspective, it seems like you've kind of found a way to have fun doing it and, not hate your life. Like it doesn't see, like sometimes you could tell, you're looking at someone's content, you're like, this person hates their life when they're making this, but, I feel like, at least from my perspective, I feel like you kind of found a way to have a good time, but I don't know that, what you're thinking.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's definitely something I've been thinking about way more this year is like, how can I have fun while doing it? Or at least on some of the stuff have a more creative edge to it. And I think with like specifically, this isn't as much like for short form content, although sometimes I just take snippets, but like a huge thing for me has been like starting the room and doing these vlogs. 'Cause that's something that's way fun to me. And I feel like if I wasn't a musician, I would do like video or photo or something just because I think it's really fun. And it's like another creative outlet for me. So this year I've just been like nerding out on like video stuff and trying to like learn about different types of shots and like telling a story, etc. And then just having fun doing that. And then with the short form stuff, I think ultimately, like, at least me personally, I don't know if there's a world where I wake up every day and want to make short form content. I don't know if that's maybe, I don't know, but I just think I've always woken up and wanted to make music, Mm-hmm. So for me, it's been most helpful for me this year so far to like choose one day that I dedicate towards just like making stuff and also finding types of content that are not time intensive. And that's not to say that some of them you can't put more time into and make better, because I think there's value in that. But like, for example, I've seen a lot of people, and I've started doing it too, just making like a 5-10 second video that's like you doing whatever, and it just has like text on screen that's like saying something about your life or whatever. And like, that's so easy to do. And those types of videos have done better for me than a lot of the stuff that I spent more time on. Yeah.
I hate that, dude.
Yeah. So
oh, yeah.
I think for me,
Kills me.
For me, it's like, I think it's improved in the past couple of years where I'm hating it less than I did a couple of years ago when I was maybe focusing like spending too much time on, first of all, spending too much time, and then also spending that time on a piece of content that I hated making. And now I'm trying to like spend the least amount of time and making the content that I enjoy more, enjoy creating more, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, dude. I think from where I sit, the vlogs are dope. Like I love the vlogs. Like I when I would get an email from Grouped or whatever, they would upload a new one, I'm always like, I think you nail it with that. And I think that that's definitely back to the long form. And one idea I would throw out there for you is do you remember the guy Julian Smith?
Oh yeah. The comedian?
Yeah, so I recently had like a coaching call thing with him, which is really random, but he was telling me that a really successful strategy right now is doing he calls it the hero asset, which is like a 12, lost you again. But he was saying that it's like this 8 to 12 minute short form or, long form medium form YouTube. And when you make those, you just make them with the short form content in mind to cut out. And that's how you get all your short form. So I'm going to start doing that to a certain degree. I'm starting up YouTube again, and this is part of it. But I think your long form is so gas that it might be worth, cutting those pieces into, if you continue doing it, into, little clips. But,
Dude, I love that. That like
2 cents.
maximizes your time too.
Yeah, 100%. He said it's like the short form's like a billboard, and then your long form is where people really can kind of get to know you and get familiar with what you do and everything, and then you funnel them to your music or your product or your website or whatever. But I was like, dang, that's a banger. So I'm doing that, but just starting. But okay, I would love to get into the music stuff now. I want to talk about 180, which is your newest one, I believe, and which I love. Been stuck in my head all day. I was listening to some of the stuff before this, and
thanks, dude.
It sounds like kind of like you're discouraged, kind of wanting to give up and dealing with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm wondering, how do you deal with that feeling like that?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, that song is definitely like a product of that feeling of discouragement,
Yeah.
Wanting to quit something. And it, as with so many creative pursuits or just entrepreneurship in general, because like being an artist is definitely falls into that category. It's so difficult to build it to a point where it sustains your life, and you don't have to worry about the financial aspect of things. But when you're building it up and you're trying to build it to that point, it can be really tough, because it's a difficult, or at least we've been told it's a difficult industry to make a living in. And so oftentimes I look around and I'm like, I don't know if you ever have these days. I think all of us have these days in general, regardless of whether we're in corporate America or, have a 9-to-5 or we're an artist or whatever. But like, I have these days where I look around and I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And, so I think that's going to happen regardless, but the song is about that feeling of like, oh, I think it would just be way easier to go get a quote unquote real job than bang my head against the wall every day trying to make this thing work. And it's so interesting though, because some days I feel, a lot of days, most days I would say, I feel so lucky to even just like do this. And, even if I'm not the richest guy in the world, like just have the flexibility and the resources to do this is amazing. And then other days I just feel like, man, I kind of envy the person that goes to work from 9 to 5 and then has their 5 to 9s just completely free to like chill and watch Netflix and whatever. And me, it's like I'm constantly thinking about the next thing I have to do, and it never ends, never stops in my brain, So that can be exhausting. So I think it's 180 is kind of a product of that, and so something that's helping me with that in particular is to one, like draw myself boundaries to be a normal human, and like block off certain times or certain days or whatever where I don't have to do music and I can just be a normal person that relaxes. And I think that's helped my mental health. And then in terms of the music thing, I think of it less these days, at least these days. I think of it less as like, when you asked how I'm dealing with that feeling of wanting to give up, I don't think a ton about like how I'm going to get to the top of the industry or whatever. And I think more about like what's going to make Adam the happiest. And when I think about that question, I don't think it comes, as cheesy as it sounds, I don't think it comes with like the accolades or the temporal like things I would buy if I got a hit song. I think it comes down to like flexibility in my life, like having time to do what I want when I want, and then obviously having some sort of financial base, which is important. So I don't think I'm not saying that I think you shouldn't think about like your ambitions and trying to like reach your goals, not at all, because I think there's a place for that, but like not just like basing my whole happiness and self-worth off like reaching this thing, and enjoying the process of doing what I want every day, which is making music. And so I don't know. That's why at the end of the day, I just come back to like, I feel lucky to do it, you know? And it's like the pursuit of this thing is the exciting thing to me. It's not necessarily getting to the thing. It's like, this is sick that I get to like try to figure this out. And I don't know. It's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, I like that. It's very wise. I think gratitude is a lot of times kind of the antidote to a lot of negative mental health situations or like bad ways of thinking. You know, if you can focus on like what you're grateful for and, you know, what's good, can help out. I like that. Yeah, and that song is a banger. Okay, so next thing I want to ask you. So in preparation for this, I went through and I listened to your whole catalog, like back to front, like from the old songs to the new ones. And just to kind of see
I'm embarrassed.
And well, here's the thing. I was embarrassed because I think your original music was way better than I would have expected for like your first songs, right? Like coming out of the gate, like for me, my first songs coming out of the gate, way more trash. So I was like, damn, this is like, dude started actually at a point that just wasn't like level 0. But I'm listening through and I'm wondering, like, can you identify a point within that, you know, from where you started to where you are now, that was like a specific turning point where you're like, okay, I got this, or like, I'm figuring this out, or like you really, things changed? Because at least for me, I think it was I can't remember exactly, but there was some point before the Colors album, few songs before that, at some point where I was like, okay, dude, seems like you were really kind of finding your thing out at that point. And then nailed it more in the album. But it's like, I was like, okay, I felt a kind of a shift happen there. I'm wondering if you think that musically and also just, you know, success wise, like if there was a point where your numbers jumped or you had a song do well, or like you figured something out production wise or whatever, like, is there a point in there that stands out to you as like a turning point or like a major milestone, you know, in your career or music journey?
Yeah, totally. Great question, dude. So in terms of like the first turning point with like success that I had, it was probably when I had a single that was never on any of my projects called It's All Right. And that song, got playlisted like really well. I think it was this playlist called Chill Hits on Spotify, which at the time, it was before Spotify had like so many playlists and it got convoluted and a little bit saturated playlist wise. So there were like a few king playlists that if you got on them, they would really drive your streaming numbers and stuff. And so when that song got playlisted, that was like a huge confidence boost, which I think was important for me.
Was that random? Like, was that just someone found it and threw it
Yeah.
on there? Like,
yeah,
nice.
It was. I think I was distributing with DistroKid at the time, and it ended up like, oh no, this is what happened. I released the song. Sorry guys, my camera's being weird. So anyways, I had this song called It's All Right, released it independently. And then a label in Europe, an independent label, hit me up and like was interested in the song and wanted to license it. Okay. And you know, when you're just starting a project, like you kind of, at least there's the temptation to like take any attention that comes your way. It's almost like, I think that's why a lot of small artists are preyed upon by labels, and like labels get a lot of shade for that. Yeah. Because these small artists are vulnerable because the most important thing at the beginning is to start getting exposure, you know? Mm-hmm. So a lot of artists are willing to give up their songs, whether it's they're selling their master or they're licensing it for a long time with not super favorable terms. Mm-hmm. And that was the case with me. So it wasn't per se a bad deal. Now I would not do it, but as soon as I signed it to the label, they like re-pitched it and technically like re-released it on DSPs. Mm-hmm. This was just a couple months after I had originally dropped it, and then it hit Chill Hits. So it was greatly because of that. So actually, maybe I would do it again because that gave me that thing. Yeah. That that validation. And so that was the first big success that like really I felt like got me on the map. And then in terms of like sonics and production, and when I started making stuff that I was truly proud of, um, I feel like it was more like maybe a little bit with my Mood Swings EP, because I was pretty happy with a lot of those songs, but it wasn't genre wise. It wasn't like ultimately I think where I wanted to go. And I didn't stay in that like electronic, like build up into a drop vibe for very long. I don't think that's somewhere I wanted to be long term. And so my nonfiction EP, like when I released The Problem with my friend Heather, that was a really cool moment, and where I felt like I was starting to really like the things I was making and was feeling really creative. And when that song came out, I was just starting to like conceptualize and figure out my album. And I didn't even know it was going to be an album at the time. I thought it was just going to be like 2 EPs, part 1 and part 2. And then I ended up doing Color part 1 and then kept releasing for the part 2. And then I was like, okay, this is a lot of songs and they can kind of fit together. And then putting out the album. So that whole process was a big growth period for me. And I feel like I learned a ton about myself as a songwriter producer, and then also about releasing a project and like doing a long album like that, and helped inform like how I'm approaching it now, like the things I liked about that and the things I didn't. So
Nice. Yeah, dope. So I gotta hand it to you, because I think like when I'm listening to a lot of the newer stuff, what sticks out to me is kind of your unique voice, not like singing voice, but like the production style and everything together. You kind of have just your own unique kind of vibe and production style. And I notice a lot of little treats, right? I'm like, oh, especially like when I was listening to elevator music, I'm like, okay, it's all these little treats that make it not repetitive and that kind of switch things up in little things, which I enjoy. And then 2, I notice, I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's like the listening experience, it almost sounds like there's tons of, you would almost imagine like there's so many tracks and like so much production. But like when I really listen, I'm like, damn, it's almost a little more minimal and everything just sounds really big and full. Which is like impressive to me. And just, I don't know, as a producer, I'm like, I'm freaking, I'm always just at stacking shit to try to like get it where I want. So when I hear it, it's like, it feels like there's so much there. But then when I really listen in, I'm like, I almost feel like there's not. Like, is that right? And also, how do you do that? How do you think about that?
dude, yeah, bro, this is not, I don't even know if this is something I can answer, because I think the same, dude. I finish a song and I think the same thing. I'm like, I look at the session,
Yeah.
and like you would think that my sessions are getting smaller and smaller as I like get more efficient, but that's definitely not the case. Like, if I ever give advice to have a session with only 50 tracks, then don't listen to me, because I'm not doing that. I often finish a song and I have like 150. I don't know. I don't usually go over like 200 or anything, but usually it's over 100. And first of all, a lot of those tracks are like little things. The way that I work, I didn't always work this way. But for example, when I'm doing like a reverb throw or a delay throw, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's like when someone sings a specific word and you hear like a big long reverb or echo after it, just on that word, that's what we call throw. So for every single one of those that happens in my song, I have a different track for, and I'm like designing them differently so that they sit in the mix like how I want them to, because I don't want the same delay for like every time I do something like that. So some of them might be like telephoned. Some of them might be super like a delay that's very verbed out and wide, so I have a lot of that stuff that I focus a lot on. And then I don't really know how to explain it, except for I listen to a song and I work on a song until I can listen through it and it doesn't feel boring.
Mm.
There's sometimes you're listening to like a verse and it's like, I don't know what it's missing, but it's missing
Mm.
something. And maybe that's what makes each producer's production style unique is I just try things until it like satisfies my ear. And maybe it's just a product of like I don't like productions to sound crazy busy. So um some of my moves aren't like super bold and like in your face, but they're more like felt than heard.
Mm.
And so maybe that's what you're hearing, where it's not like crazy busy, but it feels like there's a lot there. I also do a lot of, like layering.
Mm.
So for example, like my song Elevator Music, all the synths and stuff that are pumping in the chorus, it sounds like one thing, but it's like
Yeah.
several sounds that are doing that,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
makes sense.
So
So how did you learn? Like, or were you basically mostly self-taught? Did you have like a Jedi master that kind of showed you the ways, or like what was that like? Like, how'd you get here?
kind of a lot of different resources, but I would say YouTube is definitely the biggest
Mm.
one. Uh, YouTube University. I took a master class called Hyperbits Masterclass when I was just starting out. I think when I released like my first two singles on Spotify, I was like in the process or had just taken that class, which was awesome. It's very like electronic music, EDM
Mm.
focused, and I think it had a lot of good stuff in it. I think I had already. I think it would have been more beneficial to someone like 6 months or a year behind where I started because I felt like a lot of the concepts I was already familiar with and stuff. But what was valuable to me at the time was like it was when you're watching a lot of YouTube videos and you like don't know who to
Mm.
trust. You're like,
Yeah.
does this guy actually
Yeah.
know? Like,
That
is
guy
this
said
tone?
this. This guy says that.
Yeah, exactly. And what I liked about taking a course from the key part is like from someone who you like their music or you like what they do. That's
Yeah.
important
Mm.
because then and it's just like having a mentor that like is doing the thing you want to do. It's like, okay, I can trust what they're saying because I like their finished product.
Mm.
And it was nice to be like, oh, this is how I think I should EQ or compress or whatever, and he's telling me the same thing. So it like validates the ideas that you've already learned that you weren't sure if you're doing it the right way. Um, so I do think there was inherent value in that, but it wasn't necessarily like a turning point for me. But I think it helped. And then after that, it's just been like me, YouTube, mixed with the masters, watching lots of producers live streams. Ian
Mm.
Kirkpatrick live streams are so gold.
Oh, nice.
I've learned so much on those.
Nice.
Um, yeah, he's another producer I love for like his minimalism and his like ear candy and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I admire that a
Yeah.
lot.
He's a total gangster. Dope. Okay. Okay. I got another question. So I am basically chronically single bachelor guy, and I'm wondering, like, as it pertains to your artist journey, what like are the effects of being married and having a child, if any, like on your creativity or like how you think about being an artist, or like did that change? Did it like what is that like?
I would say that getting married or being in like a long term committed relationship in general changed more of my creativity or my songwriting process. It changed more than having a kid did.
Mm.
I would say for me, um, just because like I grew up like a hopeless romantic, like writing just like heartbreak songs and stuff, and usually trying to like draw from real inspiration. So every time I would get my heart broken or something like that, I would be sad, but I'd also be like,
Yes.
oh, like
Yeah.
stoked that I could like have some material.
Nice.
So
That's
I don't know
funny.
if you relate to that at all, but that's actually so funny. I haven't even like said that out loud, but I definitely felt like that.
Yeah,
So
I feel that.
being married definitely uh, caused me to, in a way, be more creative with my songs because I have to find other things to write about. And then at some point, I realized A Billie Eilish interview I watched a long time ago really stuck out to me when she released Bad Guy, or maybe it wasn't Bad Guy. There's a Billie Eilish song that talks about like, I think like killing someone and getting them out of her trunk or something like that. And she was talking about how like that's like it's not a true story at all, and it's like okay to just write songs that tell stories and that are like just having fun.
Yeah.
And I like agree with that so much. And so a lot of my songs still are real, and they're like about either my relationship with my wife or like other people, but some of them too are just like me telling stories or me thinking about a certain situation or perspective in a relationship or from a movie or whatever. So yeah, and then having a baby, I feel like just changes changed my mindset in terms of like the life and priority more than it did my creativity, because I still want to create just as much. I don't feel like I've changed a lot creatively, but it's like, I feel less like a kid where like I'm actually thinking about big picture life things and like what I want my life to be like and the life I want to create for her. Um, which is so cool. Like it's, you can't really explain it until you experience it, but like it's just it's a special thing, and it made me realize how much bigger life is than just me and my music and my thing. And so yeah, it's been super cool, dude.
So do you think that like either being married or having the child makes you, do you feel like you work harder or like it's more pressure? You know how you're saying you're looking big picture, like when you're making music or producing and doing stuff, like are you like approaching it a similar way, like work ethic wise and like effort wise, or are you now like let's freaking go, or what? Like did it affect that at all or no?
For me, not so much. Transparently, and not to sound, I hope this doesn't sound cocky, but like I've always worked hard at music. Like it hasn't been uncommon for me to stay home. More recently, I've been better in terms of my work life balance with this. But like, especially when I was like learning production, it would be super common for me to not go out on a weekend night or whatever, just because I was working on music. It's like, I've always worked really hard at it.
Nice.
And it comes to a point where it's like, how many more hours can you put in without it just being an unhealthy relationship? So I'm not necessarily at a point where I felt like I needed to push things further, if that makes sense. And I'm lucky to not feel pressure like you're talking about when I got married. Like, I think that highly depends on your partner too. Because I know I've talked to people that have been like, how do I do this? Like, I want to do music, but like my wife like won't let me, or like says I only have this much time to make it work. Like, and that's valid, whatever. I know it's a tough career, but I'm lucky enough to have, my wife has always been in my corner, and like always. Sometimes I'm like, I've said to her, I'm like, because you listen to the old music, right? You listen to like the first things you put out. I'm like, how were you okay with this? Because I listen to myself like back then, and I'm like, I just don't see what she saw in me from like having promise as a musician, I guess, because I feel like I've come a long way, but I'm also my own worst critic. But yeah, for me, it hasn't been like a crazy amount of pressure or changed that much, but I also haven't been a dad for that long. So who knows, that probably will change over time.
Bet. Okay. Interesting. So quickly, do you have a team, or like you just full independent, or like what's your situation with that?
So I've gone through, maybe gone through is not the right word, but my team has evolved over the years. I started just me very soon after I released my first single in 2017. It's crazy. It's been 7 years. I started working with my first manager, who found me. Like, I think my first single got on Fresh Vines Pop or something. It was a really small playlist at the time, but she found me on there, and we started working together, and we worked together until 2022. So 2 years ago. And along the way, we ended up, she had another manager / someone that helped her with her management company that was technically like a part of my team. And then in 2020, when I started releasing my nonfiction EP, we started working with a distributor, like a third-party distributor. So it's like a step above your DistroKid or your TuneCore. It's technically just like DistroKid or TuneCore, but it's like you're working with a team, their label services team at that distributor that not only distributes your music, but they'll like pitch to playlists and try to get you placements and just have like a little bit more services than just DistroKid. So I worked with them and with my manager. And then over the past 2 years, I've like downsized stuff back down. I stopped working with my manager in 2022 and on really good terms. Like, we're still really good friends, and it wasn't like a dramatic thing. It was just like she had her other stuff going outside of music, and I kind of wanted, if I was going to have a manager, I kind of wanted someone that was like on the ground with me in LA, which is where I was at the time. And then kind of a similar thing with my distributor. I stopped working with them recently and moved all my stuff to DistroKid. Mainly because I started seeing less success with like playlist placements. And also I'm putting way less weight on playlists this year and just like trying to cultivate real fans as opposed, because like I've gotten some pretty notable playlist placements and still haven't, that hasn't generated the real fans that would come to my shows, type fans that you would expect or that I had hoped for. And so I'm just like shifting my approach this year, focusing on short form content, distributing through DistroKid, putting out a lot of music, like hoping something sticks. That's kind of what I'm trying right now. Cool. And that's not to say that it's the right way. It's just like something I'm trying this year. So
nice. Perfect. So I want to ask you next about the grouped community, because like it was really interesting, because from my perspective, I listen to a ton of music and I don't really care about any artists personally. Like there's a top few that I care about, but really at the end of the day, I'm like, I just like the sound, and I was like, I don't care that much. But the first time I was exposed to you was Afterlife, the collab, right? Which sick. I freaking beat that shit to death, bro. Like straight up on repeat, dude. Like I love that. But I didn't look at who it was, right? I'm just like, I like the song. Then I think because I listened to that so much, I got on a Discover Weekly Caesar's Doomsday, which really, it made me go, who's this? Because I think just because of the history bars, like I like history, and I was like, damn, this is some like, it was just a unique, what would you say? Content, right? In the lyrics, right? I was like, oh, this is sick. And so I went and checked you out and followed you, whatnot. But, and also noticed like at the time that I followed you on like Instagram, like you weren't that active. Like I was like, this dude he's not posting that much, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I looked at your Spotify and it's like, you were doing great on there. So I was like, damn, that also was interesting. And then once you started the room, you started posting more and going on this trip, right? So I joined the room community and started kind of seeing everything you do. And it really, that like funnel to fan, like exposure to fan funnel really worked. Like I feel like the vlogs were awesome. You replying on there, doing the Q&As and stuff like that. Like I think all of that worked really well. And that was interesting for me to see, because I was like, damn, I'm in a similar boat where like I want to get fans and like build a community, and not just like, if I got a bunch of streams, great, but it's like I want to connect, to a certain degree. So yeah, I was like, that was a cool blueprint. But I wanted to ask you, one, just kind of what your thoughts are on that endeavor of building the community, but also like why you chose the grouped app over like maybe Patreon or, some other alternatives, and what you're thinking so far with that.
Yeah, great question, dude. First of all, that makes me so happy to know that it like connected with you and it, worked,
Yeah.
because ultimately we're trying as artists to find a way to build the most direct connection with our fans. And I think the appeal of something like grouped, or my community in group called the room, or like you said, any private community like that, is that you have a more direct way to reach fans that's not based on an algorithm
Mm-hmm.
that may or may not show your fans your content.
Mm-hmm.
um so far, what I love about the room is that I genuinely enjoy creating for it and like interacting on it, and it feels so different to me than social media does. um and I'm like kind of desperate, not desperate, but like I really want people to continue to tell me what they want to see in there, because I just want to service my fans, and I just like want to, I don't want my fans to go hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in a
Yeah.
sense of like what they want to see from me. Um, so that's a place where I'm trying to cultivate that type of like atmosphere where I can create content that the fans want to see, and then also just like give back to the people that care. And so that's why I'm doing like giveaways in there, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing like cash giveaways, and I'm like putting a lot of the money from the paid tier, like reinvesting it back into like giving to the people. Which another thing about it is that I'm like still trying to figure out what works best, and like how to create this community that's like thriving and a lot of people are active in, because that's the biggest hurdle for me right now, is like how to get people to go to this app that they just downloaded for my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have apps on our phones that like we never open, you know what I mean? It's like we usually go to the same few. So trying to figure out how to make that place. And I chose grouped mostly because I have a friend named Anthony Russo who's an artist, and he put me onto grouped and also connected me with like the owners of grouped, who kind of pitched me where they were going with it. And it felt like a good opportunity for um, I loved the idea of the platform, and I loved that it was like artist focused, and like everything with their development is focused on artists,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, other platforms like Patreon and stuff, which are more developed for sure. And I think their apps, transparently, I think they're like apps and things are going to be better right now because they're way bigger
Mm-hmm.
companies with better developers and further along and stuff. But that's not necessarily the goal with the room, is like Patreon just to like sell things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's more than that. And so, um, going with grouped really hinged on kind of relationships and the value I saw and where they were going, and their like ethos as a business and as a platform.
Nice. So it's like they're kind of newer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely like, I wouldn't say like brand new as in like 6 months ago. I think they've been around a couple years, but they're definitely like growing a lot and still developing and making lots of changes to their apps and things as they get feedback.
Nice.
Like I had a call with one of the founders like this week, or last week, I guess, just like talking through a bunch of stuff and a bunch of plans they have with it. So
Nice.
we'll see how it develops over time.
That's sick. Yeah, I think it's interesting because at first when I joined, I think it was a little bit. It almost seemed like just a little glitchy and weird, where I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
totally.
What's going on? And I think too, it genuinely was probably my first experience like joining a fan group or like a community like that, right? And so I had never really done that before, but there were a couple things where I, like, for example, where the vlogs are posted, as far as I can tell, you can't comment on it. And a lot of times I wanted to. I was like, I want to mention this or say that or whatever, but there's no like comment section for it. And I'm like, I'd love to comment and engage. And I think there's multiple other times where I would have liked to engage, where there just like wasn't the option to a certain degree. Which was interesting. And then the other thing is, I know you did a Q&A on there, right? And I asked 2 questions on there, and it was like in the back of my mind, but I was like, he never did the answers, like whatever. But then I go on to just check in preparation for this to see what's up, and my account got like, what happened? It was expired. And so I was like, so I had to redo it. And then I went in and I saw, there was all this stuff you posted that I just missed because my thing got like timed out or expired or something, which was interesting. But
is this on the app or online?
On the app. and I had to go sign in online. I don't know. Maybe that was just something weird with me. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think if they're it's cool to know they're active in building, because I think there really is a ton of potential there, and that's why I was curious, like what what the situation is with it, because I really like it is an enjoyable experience, and I think what you're doing on there is dope, and I feel like it being a little more connected and just working a little better. I feel like it's just gonna there's a lot more potential there.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback, and I honestly feel that so hard, like that in terms of the platform. Like, I love everything about the platform, but it's literally just the technical things that you don't want to get in your way as a consumer that needs improvement.
Exactly.
And so I passed along that feedback, and hopefully we see a lot of improvement in that area, because that's, like you said, like any opportunity for it to work like a normal social media where you can engage with each piece of content you see, and also you're like notified about things that are happening, are obviously really helpful. So yeah, dude, I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's cool. I'm excited to see what happens on there, and I think it is really nice when you're not at the mercy of an algorithm to a certain degree. It's just like the way that consuming content feels when it's not like just random and it's like whatever. I think that's cool. So, okay, I got a couple closing questions left if you got some more time. One of them is, okay, when you're thinking about music, right, and trying to progress and find success and gain listeners and whatever, what do you think is the most important aspect that is that you can't take out of the equation? Like, maybe for you, maybe in general, but like, what is a non-negotiable, or like what would be the main thing to focus on?
Having fun.
Enjoying it?
As it sounds. Having fun, like finding a way to actually be inspired what you're working on.
I love that.
Because, dude, it's just a lose-lose if you aren't.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lose-lose. Like, you're not having a good time. You're working on something. This especially comes into play if you're working for other people, because a lot of times, like, we're humans, we're vain, we love ourselves. Like, if you're working on your own thing, like, it's more likely that you're gonna mess with it and like what you're doing. But especially like if you're working on someone else's thing and you hate it and you're not inspired, it's just like, there's easier ways to make money, bro. And why are you going to be miserably working on this thing that you're not having fun doing? So I don't know. Ultimately, it's like coming back to the roots of, why did I want to start making music in the first place? Why did I ever want to do this for a career in the first place? It's because of the feeling I got when I was in my basement writing a song and I figured out the chorus, and and I knew that was the chorus. Like, that feeling is what made me ever want to do music long term. And if the primary motivation is, for anyone listening, is like to be the famous guy, then it's just like, I think there's just other ways that are probably easier to be famous.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's great. That's a clip. Nice. Okay. Last thing I want to ask you is thoughts on AI. Are you looking at music AI? Are you thinking about it? Have you tried it? What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. I definitely have. The past like 4 months, I haven't really, AI in music hasn't crossed my mind that much, but definitely before that, when I was still, I guess before I left the States, I was thinking about that a lot, because I was getting hit with like a lot of AI ads with music and stuff. I'm all for technology making the music creation like more streamlined and easy, and easier to get ideas out. So I think that's great. I think the harm comes when we talk about, as with anything in AI, I don't know, maybe there's other points of view that I'm not considering. But when it comes to people losing their livelihood or not having jobs, or like just completely swallowing certain aspects of the industry, like, that's not my favorite. But at the same time, I'm sure new opportunities will come up as they always do when technology progresses. So I'm definitely not like opposed to it. I think if there's a tool that can like generate a really cool chord progression or like a loop that I can flip and like do my own creative thing with, I think that's dope.
Yeah, I think I don't know exactly what's gonna happen. I'm pretty tapped in. Like I'm always on YouTube, like looking what are the new tools and what are the new things, and
Really?
just the even this app called Suno, and it's, dude, you can put in lyrics, what style of music, everything, and like I make songs on it all the time just for fun. Like when we go to Top Golf for my homie's birthday, and like going to Top Golf for Eric's birthday song, and it has custom lyrics that I just put in about it and play it in the car for everyone, and everyone's shitting their pants laughing, and like, you know,
Really?
I'll just do stuff like that, and it's a lot of times a banger, dude. Like a lot of times I'm like, holy shit, like
Really?
it's a banger. Yeah, I would recommend just playing around on there. It's called Suno, and the crazy thing is that you can just go ding 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 and generate songs this quick, bing 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 bing, and it just loads them up, and you know, I'm like, a lot of times I'm like, I'm taking that melody, or like I'm taking that chord progression, like that shit's fire. So it's just starting, right? So I'm like, I don't know where it's gonna go, but it's getting crazy, but it's pretty cool. But
Dude, that's so sick.
Yeah.
One of my roommates, well, he lives in the house I have my studio at in LA. He was doing this. He was telling me the same thing because he's like on some YouTube beta program where you basically do the same thing, give it lyrics and a style, and choose an artist, like an archetype,
Yeah.
like Charlie Puth or whatever, and they'll spit out a song. And they were saying they were like bringing those melodies to sessions and
yeah,
stuff.
dude, it's really out
I'm
of
sure it's
control.
happening a lot already,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, me
I have
too.
mixed feelings about
Yep,
it.
me too. Half of me's really scared. The other half of me's like, okay, I just need to make sure to like you were saying, like focus on like, what do I love doing? And like, if this can help me do what I love, then good. And just try to find a way to keep doing that rather than just being scared, because I feel like it's so easy to just be scared and complain and, you know, throw your hands up. But yeah,
Exactly. And I would say too, this is going way back to your question about like the content I consume and stuff. But a lot of the content I can consume in terms of, I do listen to some like music production podcasts. Sometimes I'll get really into those. A big one for me has been Live with Matt Rad, which is Matt Rad, who's a producer, and John Castelli. For the most part, it's them two. John Castelli is a mix engineer, and they just talk through like super nerdy, like super in depth, like production stuff and mixing stuff, and that's been really really helpful for me in terms of improving like my mixes and just finishing songs and stuff. But other than that, I listen and I'm really into and fascinated by finance and like strategies for whether it's like making more money or just mostly like investing and figuring out how to build wealth over time. That's something that as a musician, I'm like, it's a fear of mine because like one month I'll make good money, another month I won't. And so like, I'm also trying to figure out how I keep doing this long term and keep my freedom long term. So I get pretty into finance podcasts weirdly.
are you a crypto guy?
I just started getting my feet wet in crypto.
Welcome. I love that shit.
We'll
I'm such a
have to
nerd.
chat crypto.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, what do they call it? Orange pilled. Great. Well, dude, that's most of my questions. I super appreciate you taking the time to do this. What you got? Any plugs? Where can people go? Where do you want to send people?
I would just send people to the room.
Okay.
Um,
Link in the description.
I guess you can go to my Instagram. It's like linked on all my socials, but we'll put the link somewhere. And then I think it's just app.grouped/the room,
Yeah.
I believe, is the URL. And that's just like where I'm giving away free stuff and put everything I release, basically, whether it's a video, like a vlog, a song or whatever, or songs I'm not planning on putting out. Like you can find all that stuff there that's continued to be uploaded. And also it's going to see a lot of tweaks to how I'm structuring like the pay structure. I'll make a post about this, but I think I'm going to get rid of the paid tier and just have like a pay what you want tier for people that just like want to support. But I want to give access to like I want the barrier to entry to be lower for like people that just want to become fans. Like the way that you described that you like got funneled in and then you were able to like see everything and like know who I am and become feel like you know me more. Like I want the barrier to entry to be smaller. So I'm working on reworking that so that anyone can consume the content.
Great. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to link it and everything, and I definitely recommend it. It's dope in there. Cool. Well, thanks, dude.
Thank you so much, bro. We'll have to chat offline sometime.
Bet.